Proudly presents the Almost Daily ZenCast. Today's subject, Day 50 in Trumptopia. Are you ready? Let's get started. Good morning, my fellow Americans. Or should I say, good morning, my fellow Trumptopians. Do you ever wake up and feel like you've discovered yourself and your life to be just a background character, an ant on an anthill in some massively crazy, bizarre, and maybe slightly boring movie? That's what I felt like today, because I woke up with the very distinct question on my mind about last night's news. So I come in from my day job. I pop on the news, as is my tradition. I don't watch a lot of TV, but when I watch television, it's usually the news. And I'll stop right there for anybody who is like, but the news is all blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I know. I get it. The number of corporations that own and operate news outlets have gone from a slightly diverse sounding over 50 to, less than a handful. And they control everything, and corporations control everything. Okay, I got it. They still tell us the news, and it's very instructive to sort of look for the trends of how they talk about certain pieces of news, the specifics of how they address news, or what drum they're beating. Helps you be at least asking the question, what drum are they not beating? What is it they're not pointing to? And as someone curiously pointed out on social media in the middle of some conversation at me in the last year or so, they are still vaguely required by law to tell us the truth. And they do. They just do it in very weird and often misleading ways. Why did I stop to break that down? I'm sort of always blowing polemics out. There's the people who trust the news, and they think that overall, generally speaking, except for the occasional corruptions, the news is some sort of agency of the people that is truly democratic and tries to speak truth to power. And there are others who implicitly, long before Donald Trump came around, don't trust the news. This started with the social slogan "Kill your television," which I don't disagree with necessarily. I just don't like the violent imagery. I'd say more like "Liberate your television" would be more my style. So I'm right in the middle, where I'm a cynic and I kind of regard anything in life as a potential ego trap, therefore potential misleading or otherwise fake news. I made a post about that recently, I think. Hey, here's the breakingest of the breaking of the fake news. Everything is fake news. Whatever's going on in your mind is not actually what happened, but rather a representation of it in your mind. And that goes on for many layers, and it gets a bit mind-trippy. Why is that important? Because I think that in moments of crisis, which arguably this country definitely is it's not a terrible idea to pause, breathe, and collect one's thoughts. I called it early, I think, but I think at this point, for sure, Trump exhaustion, Trump fatigue is definitely beginning to rear its head, and people are just sort of getting tired of the subject. Meanwhile, an impossible freight train of clusterfuck continues to thunder through we don't give a shit town of America. And because I'm not on either side. For those who don't know this about me, I love America and I love political organizing as a process. I don't love politics and I don't love politicians. And I have long argued that the whole system is corrupt enough. No need to get to any kind of, dystopian James Bond villain character level. Even at the mundane level of like, well, there's a lot of money flowing through it and money talks and bullshit walks. There was very little to be trusted about politics in our lifetime, having been paying attention for as long as I've been paying attention. Not to pat myself on the back, I'm just saying, as opposed to the average millennial, I have a couple of decades worth of vivid political recollection, and there ain't nothing new about Trump. And that's the alarming thing. The people who hate Trump are like, no, this is unprecedented. Yeah, his level of audacity, of incompetence, and of like sort of lack of recognition that his corruption is easily exposed might be unprecedented. But the root cause, those are just symptoms, my friends. The root cause underneath that ain't nothing new. Corporations are older than this country. That's an idea I think we've sort of drifted away from, that corporations are not these shiny new robot-operated, driven, tech company type things. Corporations are the oldest of corporations. Corporations most of us may not be very familiar with have been around for a really long time. Proof, the 13 colonies in their original charters are described as corporations, not as states with democratic election cycles. And what we're experiencing right now, well, it's multiple things, but what we are experiencing right now can be described as the almost inevitable Babylonian tower of, fail. All towers have to be collapsed because you can't build infinitely. If there's a pragmatic and simple or mundane lesson from any Jenga game or from the Tower of Babel story, is that you cannot build something in a finite system that requires infinite growth because it'll fall on itself. And this corporate greed, kleptocracy, oligarchy, corporate oppression thing, it's a gambit, and it's going to play itself out. And I think we're seeing like the beginnings of the ends of that. Who knows? What we know for sure, that's just me postulating, right? What we know for sure is that the president has only been in office for 50 days. And it's like, I've said this before. I said this from early on when he first started getting really serious about the campaign. It's like he's trying to get fired. You know those motherfuckers that get a job that they don't deserve, and they never really wanted it, but somebody shoved it down their throat because of connections, and they had to say yes, and they took it. And then they're just like, well, they hired me to be an asshole. I'm going to be an asshole and try to fucking get fired. I think that Trump fatigue is settling in on Trump. He's not getting to play the life game the way he usually likes it. He's pure ego-id, like sycophant inner child, like the ugliest kind of inner child. And I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I think I've said this before. If we are all human beings, and unless Trump is about to be unmasked a la Simpsons, and we got to talk about the Simpsons connection in a minute, unless he's going to be unmasked and is going to go, I'm an Atlantean, lizard demon from the 19th portal. Unless that happens, he's just another human being, right? All human beings fundamentally operate the same way, need the same things, fall for the same pitfalls, and require the same procedures of healing. especially right now, in this postmodern context. We live in a crazy-making world. The imaginary world of rules and boxes you got to fill out and bills you got to pay. It's crazy-making. And prime example, the people who want to run it are crazy. Why? Because the system made them crazy, and now the system attracts them to we'll reward your crazy with more crazy. A review of his time in office is just what the fuckery of epic proportions. His numbers, his statistical numbers on fact-checked lies is redonkulous. In fact, I pulled up the wrong website. I meant to pull up PolitiFact. Or, what's that other one? Yeah, PolitiFact. I can't type and host the show at the same time. That's why I need team members, recruiting, local area people willing to meet here and participate in the show for free, because I don't have any money. But we're going to raise some money. And, if you're around here and you're willing to make the drive, looking for a responsible, sane, relaxed and groovy, progressive, spiritually minded, doesn't hurt if you're into crazy things like Ouija and Tarot. I'm not New Age woo-woo, but I definitely like tinkering with some of their symbols. Okay. Donald Trump file has got this brilliant little bar graph of his here it is, the PolitiFact scorecard on Donald Trump. The categories are of statements he's made throughout, I guess, since he announced, I'm assuming, because they've been PolitiFacting him since day one. They've been fact-checking his ass. And I know, who is this media? Who owns this media outlet? Are they biased? Are they owned by the half of the world that wants to, play good cop against him? Who knows? It doesn't matter at a certain level, because to a certain degree, some of these things can be checked. And I think that this sort of thing, even if it is biased, they're highlighting the truth bias against him. That's all. So the categories, or the bar graphs, are labeled true, mostly true, half true, mostly false, false, pants on fire. He's been there 50 days. 15, he gets 15 points in the true column. That's 4% of his total score, based on, I don't know how many iterations of his variations on all his lies. Mostly true, 45, 12%. Half true, 54. So, right there, half of what he says is untrue, roughly. A little less than half. Because half of what he says is untrue at least one half. Because to get half of what he said to be half true, you know what I'm saying? So all of what he says is less than half true or more, no matter how you slice it. Mostly false, 76%, 76 points, 20% of everything he's ever said, of everything he's ever been ranked on. False, 123, 33%. Pants on fire, 63 points for pants on fire. That, my friends, is outrageous. Find this meme. I think I posted a version of this, or I'm about to, if I haven't yet. But find it. Go on PolitiFact. Make your own. Share this at your Trump friends. I know we all lost a bunch of Trump friends, but get them back. Have that healing conversation. And then tell them, do you see yet how much of a pants-on-fire liar this guy is? No matter how you slice it, no matter which way you want to go at it from there, he's lying like in epic records in a way that's embarrassing. So there's that. I would love to, and this is a revealing comment, I would love to meet Mr. Trump, President Trump, and offer for him like a 4-hour spiritual consultation with my various hippie new age woo-woo diagnosis techniques. I would love to read him on my tarot decks. Ooh, spoiler alert, that's a reveal. Not very many people know that I'm into tarot, and have been for a long time. I've never read, but I've been fascinated by its imagery and its meaning, and its symbolism. And occasionally I have had my tarot read for free by friends. But recently I've invested the time in actually pretending to learn it deeper and start practicing. Anyways, but I would love to sit with him and really connect. The divination tools of any style or kind are really just about, when you're working with someone else, giving the mind the opportunity to work on problems, image association, and self-investigation questions in a tool that may or may not be inherently familiar, with a guide, the person providing the service. And the important part there is like sort of breaking down the emotional barriers so you can have an energy connection. I would love to understand what's going on with him as a human being. Why? Because love him or hate him, and at this point I'm really addressing people who hate him, he needs help. And that's one of the things no one's talking about. No matter whether he's just crazy on his own and got a little bit of money and help from the Russians to win, and that's it. Or crazy by himself, pure, free of any Russian influence. If he really is a truly loose cannon, he's still experiencing all this pressure. He's still a human being in like one of the hardest jobs on the planet, one of the dumbest jobs on the planet, in my opinion. No offense. I respect the office of leadership. I don't respect the system and the way it operates and what the people in that job are clearly forced to do, which is, make the people feel good, make the American public feel good, but perpetuate an never-ending internal and external war on how people think and believe, which is significant. It isn't just something to be tossed aside. What you believe matters. Belief matters. Hashtag. And, all souls are suffering. And that's an axiom that can't be debunked. Even the most well-off, even the most saintly, there's some suffering there, because that's what this world is in a certain way. We are here, just the very nature of realizing that we are both the divine unity, the divine spirit, and this flesh body, and kind of bound by this flesh body, regardless of however many enlightening events we might experience. There's a lot of work ahead before we get to any place where we might feel, free of the pain of this body. So all souls are suffering. And people in his position, people that are deeply corrupted, violating human decency and human, I guess, dare I use the word morality, of course they're suffering. There is pain involved in falling into those ego traps, and, it's a downward slippery slope of torture. And they pretend to cover, to be whatever they are, whatever they're pretending to be, because the money gives them some amount of energy and power to do that, to pretend. And so does the ego. And now, this is my biggest sort of push. I want to share this with the spiritual community at large, because I said I was going to do a recap. I've heard so many crazy theories about what's going on with Trump. I think it's quite fascinating to wake up in a Sean Connery James Bond movie, because let me crack some light onto what I think about Russia. Russia is not just a ruse. Also, note the word root there, Russia and ruse. That little packet, RUSE, comes from the same root. Hey man, I didn't come up with that synergistic coincidence, and I don't think that there are coincidences. And let me that's to be cute and funny, but also to point out a weird, mystical. I should have a little chime that chimes just so everyone knows. Ding! I'm talking about mystical shit. Oh wait, if I did it like this, maybe. All right. But let's take a look at that. Taking a step back, it's not Russia, right? Putin is a very powerful puppet. And he might be the top dog in terms of the puppet state, the state of actors that play on the world stage. For as Shakespeare humbly reminded us quite a long time ago, all the world is a stage. That has resonance and meaning on many levels: cultural, socio-political, personal, in terms of how we relate to each other and how we, bullshit each other, and spiritual, in terms of what we're here to do. We're literally here to play out this drama, and in every step, we have this opportunity to learn the lesson of the play. People like Trump and the oligarchs and the pressers and the Rothschilds and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There are probably names. Let's be honest. For all the names we've heard of, that must be the tip of the iceberg, and there must be a base of names, a larger collection of names we haven't. So some shadowy figure, some undisclosed multi-bazillionaire that's like in the top 1% of the top 1% of the top 1% of the 1%ers, they truly have their claws in everything. And let's stop beating around the bush. This is why I was posting about this, but before social media existed, I was talking about this with people and getting crazy looks, being told I was a nut job. There are two levels of ego influence here. The ego power base around the industry of profiteering on every aspect of life, which culminates and sort of climaxes orgasmically in a disgusting way on the profiteering of war as a product. That wasn't invented with World War I or World War II. That was just advanced to this crazy, insane, mechanized drop bombs at each other from flying bits, from flying machines. We've been profiteering on war for as long as there's war in the written record, okay? Because if you're a little bit more vigilant about history than the average, high school graduate, you'll dig up and understand that there's plenty of large swaths of time that are not accounted for in any kind of written record. And while there may be some story being stitched together by archaeology, there's a lot we don't know. And yet there are theories that have a lot of interesting science around them that endorse and support sort of the proposition that at least one of those swaths of history lost to our general common knowledge and to any kind of record was a time so far long ago that we were actually a very advanced society and we achieved things equivalent to what we are capable of now. And it very tidily explains things, and we won't get into that now. But the point is, we discovered it then, and I call all of that crazy jumble of potential theoretical historical activity the pre-Babylonian Tower era. Literally the mists of historical time where history kind of goes, and we lived and did stuff, and then archaeology picks up with the first, ape to walk and, on hind legs. Boom. I propose that there's a huge gap between where our current historical model fades into mist and where Lucy was standing around going, walking is good. Let's do that from now on. I think that, we can assume that we can't calculate how much time was there. And so we perfected and probably survived some horrible war before. Why? There's all kinds of energy memory around it. There's all kinds of synergistic, we've been down this path around it. Okay, you want to dismiss genetic memory and energy memory and consciousness messaging as hippie new age woo-woo? Fine. I'll point to some sources I'm so bad at recall sometimes, and I got to stop saying that sentence is what keeps me bad at it. I got to start getting better and maybe writing notes down before I launch into a show. But there's a beautiful documentary series on YouTube. I think their channel's called Fire in the Sky, but I could be wrong. I could be sending you to some horrible place. I apologize if I called out the wrong YouTube channel. I'll dig it up at some point. And they do a beautiful analysis of scientific postulations that check out and kind of confirm with other scientific, fact, and build some momentum towards being a really great theory, that ancient mythos is based on plasma discharge between planetary bodies that were at one point dramatically different positions in the sky than they are traditionally viewed as being in now. And that's a whole crazy story. But I've heard that called in, and I've heard, that there's ascension happening, and so Trump is the anti-ascension sort of ego trap. That's the one I sort of vote for in terms of personal worldview. Okay? If the world is a classroom, a dream being dreamt by God about dreaming these dreams we call lives, and there's one lesson in this particular chapter of this dream, and that lesson is you have to choose between ego and profiteering and all of those horrible things that come with it. Either staying on that pitfall of pain and suffering and endless self-destruction, or ascension and the path of ascension and healing and the hard work of developing a society sort of on the principles as taught by the ascended masters that from before, and the ascended masters on their way. And that's the choice. And then when we make that choice and we reach a tipping point of critical voting with our beliefs in this harmonic frequency holographic matrix of interactive video gaming, then we'll really start making progress towards manifesting that at a species-wide global level, and that process will include third eye opening, transformative evolutionary steps. Maybe not one big massive flash into superhero status where we can fly and move objects with our mind or anything. We won't become Doctor Strange in the next 24 hours just because we meditated for 20 minutes. No, but we will be building towards that sort of healing growth, and ultimately evolution does happen in snaps, in something that over a generation and a half, which is the blink of an eye, in epic cosmic time. So to come back to a sort of jumping point that I never really jumped from, Trump and people like Trump in positions of power and corruption, they're fulfilling a role, and they need healing in order to, because each role, every path, always has a fork in the road, and we are like the slum. We're on that path, and we're sort of given the opportunity every day, every moment of our lives to pause and contemplate the ever-present fork in the road. And one fork, and I don't want to designate a direction, but whichever one makes the sense to you. In one direction, you're picking a path that leads you further and further down ego. And what does that render in your life? Just look at people like Donald Trump and Rex Tillerson. They are willfully misleading the American public, all for greed and money and power and the hoarding of those things. And those things, when you really think about it, are just imaginary things. Money is not attached to gold anymore, and power is purely a consent of those powered over, those governed. There's no, if you eliminate the position, the power's gone. If you abdicate the idea, the power goes away. These are just ideas, and they're damaging the people they're trotting on. And they must be, no matter how much they deny it in public sentiment, in public statement, and in public appearances, they must be suffering. If we analyze the efficacy in theory of picking an ascension path sort of approach to politics and organizing, you'll see why I am a big proponent for creating a political party that is founded on transcending. I don't want to use the word transcendental because I know that's a loaded term, but transcendental meditation and sort of cosmic thinking. Because if we organize a political action committee and a grassroots network that manifests that sort of culture of beginning from a base of healing, of compassionate thinking, of organizing for the better good, and of really making the way in which the new organizational procedures operate include meditative exploration and an open, frank discussion of spiritual themes and ideas and realities, spiritual experience, spiritual phenomena, which are completely divorced. We argue a lot about, it's funny, in America we argue about the separation of church and state, but church has been bought and sold a long time ago. Church is very tightly controlled. It doesn't matter which, by tightly controlled I don't mean that everybody's preacher is evil, but so much money flows into so many churches from so many places, and so many churches themselves are so wealthy that they have the greed and corruption of power and of trying to influence and play the political game covertly as well as overtly. That very few houses of worship are truly 100% trustworthy. And I don't mean to disrespect anybody who feels that their particular house of worship is free and clear, but ideologically speaking, the war profiteers co-opted religion a long time ago because they baked it right into the books. And we can get into that discussion another time. I want to keep this to the political crazy that we're living through. So it's been 50 days, and he's signed a bunch of things that have either very quietly done things that very few Americans have actually felt the impact of yet, or put forward ideas that are unapprovable by the public and by the instruments of government, and therefore have just been stalled out and done nothing. The wall is going nowhere. No one is out there breaking ground on the wall. And that was supposed to be a day one thing, right? Or a week one thing, month one thing. This ACA crazy, I already rambled about that. And it's ridiculous. And we really should all, regardless of our religious affiliation, we should hold Trump and everybody in the GOP accountable for this Christian identification that they tout, that they wave the little flag about, and then go, but really? This is your solution? This is what you're doing with healthcare? Tisk, tisk, tisk. I really doubt that Jesus would approve. And if anybody didn't listen to that episode, Jesus would heal every last one of you motherfuckers for free. And go, this is what you get when you reach ascended master status. Stop dicking around. The bottom line is, with everything from my perspective, is that we're all trapped in these roles, but they're all got the freedom of consciousness and the free will factor. So, and while we feel very much like individuals, we are an interconnected, networked species. That's why mob mentality works. That's why flash mob stuff can synchronize so beautifully. That's why dance companies can tap into some weird, faster than light, way of knowing what each other's direction and intent is going to be. And that is true intimately and vividly with groups that work together. So think about it. All these politicians, you wonder why they all end up as overtly, stupidly, panderingly corrupt as they seem to. It's because even as they work their way up, while they're mayors and governors, and what even before that, while they're the chairmans, while they're assistants to other folks in the process, they see the money working its bullshit and corrupting folks. And Trump is a product of all of it. He's not a rebel. He's not really a rebel. And it's not really Russia. Let's zoom back to that, okay? Trump played everybody. He's not really a loose cannon. He's being highly influenced, and if not, overtly manipulated by Russia as a puppet. And there's a larger collection of extremely wealthy people hiding in the shadows. And I've been pointing to this a long time ago. They show us the truth, and then they hide it away and count on the fact that we'll forget about it. Does anyone remember the Panama Papers? Of course not. Because news agencies talked about it for exactly one day or two. And then they swept it under the rug. They threw it out with the bathwater. And no one remembers anything about it. Not one word. But it's still out there floating around, and people have read it, and people investigated it, and people are fighting for it. The Russians are just the biggest spigot. They're like the big stupid cup at the top of the trickle-down pyramid of corruption. In my opinion, and I'm not trying to, rattle sabers, and I'm just speaking truth to power. My life is meaningless, and if not, my real audience is those who are on the verge of waking up and are like, "Oh God, politics! What do we do?" This is what we do. But realize that there's a group of people, and that group of people are not ill-informed. They know more than you. They went to better schools than you. And they've kept themselves surrounded by people who are more well-informed than you about everything. Okay? And the scale of the fight is on that level. It's just like the gun nuts who are hoarding handguns and semi-automatics and assault rifles in case the day they gotta, as programmed by their own brainwashers, have a bloody revolution against the tyrants. Guess what? By the time we had the American Revolution, and they settled deals, and they set in the corruption, they reset the corruption. They anticipated that people would wake up at some point down the road and go, wait a minute, we don't like the way that this turned out. This freedom that we've been given is all corrupt. Because I don't think it's new, like I'm saying, it's as old as the Tower of Babel. America is just the newest drop in the bucket. They anticipated that, and they gave us this gun culture and this gun crazy making, and they promised us that we would be able to defend ourselves. But then they lied to us because they sold us the weapons that we are anticipating to use in this revolution, and they took our money, and then they built bigger, stronger, more badass weapons and did not sell those to us. Do you understand? So fighting Trump can never get to that level. We can't fight this government by arming up and going and having a bloody revolution. They'd love for that to happen. They'll mow us down, they'll mow you down, because I'm not part of that, okay? I never advocate for that. I'm here speaking, overtly saying that, because there are people ready, seething, foaming at the mouth to go militia up and have a bloody fucking Civil War Part 2. And all that'll do is meat grinder everybody down to the bone to a more manageable population. And those of us who refuse to fight will endeavor to try to change the thinking of everybody else standing by, going, what the fuck are we going to do when this war is over? All right? Because to all you gun nuts, do you really think that your AK-47 stands a chance to the automatic piloted drone bombs from some other location that are just going to drop on you? Think about it. Also, the revolution can still happen, and it does not need to be bloody if you never shoot first. The revolution is not about killing people. That's something we've proven to ourselves over and over again. And this is important to me because I feel that this Trump thing is just about to start. It's just picking up speed. You know what I mean? We're just breaking it open. It's like when you start everything's a spiral, man. Look at it. Do the research into sacred geometry. Everything's a spiral. This is a spiral. This is water draining down the tube of ego trap spiral downward yuckiness. And we, historically, timeline-wise, are just approaching the event horizon where the water is just beginning to pick up speed. And believe it or not, it gets faster and faster as it reaches further down the funnel in towards the nexus where it finally bursts through to the other side. And in the ego spin, that just kicks you back up to the that event horizon and sucks you back down the funnel. And you got to work 18 times as hard to get back out, to climb your way out of the event horizon of the downward funnel of suck. We simultaneously, that middle ground between the edge of the outside edge of that event horizon and the sort of calm waters of normalcy, and then the upwards funnel, it's all right there. We're right here on the precipice of either spiral. And Trump, they're all here to shock us and alert us to the ego trap and to make us all stand united saying, we ain't going to go down that path. We are not going to live that history again. We are not going to set upon ourselves another great crazy oppression that we have to fight and bleed over and, meat grinder ourselves into sausage for the benefit of those who are going to profiteer on both sides, on all sides. It's not a crazy conspiracy theory. You just have to go and look at history, and it's there. The crazy conspiracy is contriving, those who have spent money contriving cultural norms to push this fact to the fringe of calling it a conspiracy. The president lies 50 days in office, and he's told more lies than more crazy, impossible, why did you bother, how could you say that kind of lies. Every president lies. All right? Every president in our living memory has spoken untrue things at you. And I know this from paying attention and doing some fact-checking myself and always watching the fact-checkers. And it's not going to stop, folks. It's only going to get crazier. There's a meme floating around about, the world, the shit is hitting the fan. And the fan says, no, we're way past that. I'm like drowning in this. And it's just going to get worse. It's just piling on. We should be shocked. We should be enraged. Every time I see footage of, let me wrap with this, because I know that it's been a crazy 50 days, and I wasn't here to ping every day of his presidency. We can do another 50-day episode or another recap episode soon, but I got to get going and start my day. But I'm going to wrap it up with this as I kick in my theme music, and thank you all for listening. The symbols, these guys are there to make us question which path we take. That's their cosmic job. Our cosmic job is to heal them, thank them for the symbol, and get them to stop. Hold them accountable. All right? We got to hold them all accountable. They all pretend to be Christian. Let's hold them accountable on those terms. They're acting very unchristlike. Where's my music? Oh, I want this over here. Play, baby, play. And let's bring the spiritual content to the foreground, folks. Start calling your senators and asking them spiritual questions. Start writing into your favorite news show with spiritual questions. And if you're a hardcore fan, start referencing me at the news. Thanks for listening, folks. If you like what you hear, there's more coming. If you want to help this show reach a bigger audience, sound more awesome, and provide I want this eventually I want to be a job creator here. I'm trying to create myself a job and a small team of like 6 people. Hit up the Patreon page. As always, may peace, love, and grooviness be with you, my friends. Namaste.